Ethan Carter never imagined his life would change because of a simple signature. He sat in a dimly lit office, staring at the long contract in front of him. The company representative, a short man in a sharp suit, smiled impatiently. "You'll want to sign quickly, Mr. Carter. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Ethan hesitated. He had been looking for a job for months, and this company, Galactic Trade Services, promised high pay and great benefits. The contract was full of complicated legal jargon, but at this point, he was too desperate to care. With a sigh, he grabbed the pen and signed his name at the bottom. The representative's smile widened unnaturally. "Congratulations. The deal is sealed." As soon as Ethan lifted the pen, the air around him shimmered. The room seemed to warp, and a strange hum filled his ears. He barely had time to react before a blinding light engulfed him. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was somewhere else. Instead of the small office, he stood in an enormous hall with towering stone pillars. Glowing blue torches lined the walls, casting eerie shadows. In front of him, a massive crowd of alien warriors stood in formation, their silver armor gleaming. Their skin was dark gray, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. And at the center of it all was her. She was tall, very tall, at least 8 feet, with broad shoulders and a muscular build that made Ethan feel tiny. She wore a black and red suit of armor, a long blade strapped to her back. Her piercing golden eyes locked onto his, filled with something dangerous and unreadable. She stepped forward, her boots booming against the floor. "Ethan Carter," she said, her voice deep and commanding. "By the sacred laws of the Thurzak, you are now my lifemate." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The crowd erupted into cheers and roars. Ethan's heart pounded. "Lifemate. That sounded an awful lot like—" No. This had to be a mistake." "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding," Ethan said, raising his hands. "I was signing a job contract." "Not." "The contract was your union bond," the warrior woman interrupted. "By placing your mark upon it, you have accepted the ancient traditions of my people. You belong to me now." Ethan's blood ran cold. The company tricked him. No, sold him into some kind of intergalactic marriage. That had to be illegal, right? He turned to run, but 2 massive guards blocked his way. The warrior woman smirked at his reaction. "Do not fear, human. You are now bonded to Zyra Vark-Tuan, High Commander of the Thurzak, and I do not take weak mates." Ethan gulped. This was bad. Very, very bad. Ethan's heart pounded as the alien crowd continued to cheer. He felt like a small animal trapped in a cage full of lions. Wait, he stammered, raising his hands. "There's been a mistake. I didn't mean to sign a marriage contract." Zyra Vark-Tuan, the towering warrior woman, tilted her head as if studying a strange new creature. "You placed your mark on the sacred bond. The union is sealed. There is no mistake." Ethan shook his head rapidly. "No, see, on Earth, we have divorces. You can just cancel. Divorce." Zyra's golden eyes narrowed. "Among the Thurzak, a bond is forever. Breaking it would bring shame upon my honor." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "Well, that's unfortunate." Before he could argue further, 2 armored warriors grabbed his arms. "It is time for the rite of acceptance," one of them growled. "The what now?" Ethan yelped as they dragged him forward. Zyra turned and walked toward an enormous stone throne at the center of the hall. She stood before it, then raised her hand. The crowd fell silent. "My people," she said in a loud, commanding voice, "I have chosen a mate, not a warrior, but a human from another universe." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some warriors frowned. Others looked amused. Zyra continued, "Though he is weak in body, I believe he has strength of mind. He must prove himself worthy." Ethan's mouth went dry. "Wait, prove? How exactly do I?" Before he could finish, Zyra snapped her fingers. The large metal gate at the side of the hall rumbled open, revealing a dark tunnel. A low guttural growl echoed from inside. Ethan's legs nearly gave out. Oh no. A huge four-legged beast stepped into the light. It had thick, scaly skin, long claws, and red glowing eyes. Saliva dripped from its fanged mouth as it sniffed the air. "Meet the Kryn beast," Zyra said with a smirk. "Your first test." Ethan turned to her in panic. "You want me to fight that thing? I don't even know how to throw a proper punch." Zyra crossed her arms. "Then you better learn fast." The beast roared and charged straight at him. Ethan screamed and ran in the opposite direction. The crowd laughed. The beast was fast. Too fast. Ethan barely dodged its claws as it swiped at him, tearing a chunk out of the stone floor. He scrambled behind a pillar, his mind racing. "I can't fight this thing," he muttered. "But maybe I don't have to." His eyes darted around the arena, looking for anything useful. That's when he spotted the chains holding up a giant ceremonial gong above the beast. An idea hit him. A crazy, stupid idea. He took a deep breath. "Okay, here goes nothing." And with that, he ran straight toward certain death. Ethan ran toward the giant ceremonial gong, his heart hammering in his chest. The Kryn beast let out a deep, guttural snarl and lunged after him, its claws scraping against the stone floor with terrifying speed. "This is a bad idea," Ethan muttered. "A really bad idea." The alien crowd cheered for the beast, expecting Ethan to be torn apart within seconds. Even Zyra, his supposed wife, watched with arms crossed, amusement flickering in her golden eyes. Ethan didn't have muscles, he didn't have weapons, but he had a brain, and that was his only hope. As the beast charged, Ethan dodged at the last second, diving to the side. The creature slammed headfirst into a pillar, shaking the entire hall. Dust and small bits of rock rained down, but the monster barely seemed fazed. "Okay," Ethan panted. "That didn't work. Plan B." He sprinted toward the thick chains that held up the giant gong. They were connected to a mechanical pulley system near the arena's edge. If he could break those chains at the right moment. The Kryn beast roared and came at him again. Ethan grabbed a loose piece of broken stone from the floor and flung it at the pulley system with all his strength. Clang! The stone jammed the mechanism, sending the heavy gong swinging forward. The crowd gasped. The beast looked up just in time to see several 100 pounds of solid metal crashing down toward it. Boom! The entire hall shook as the gong slammed into the creature, sending it skidding across the floor. The beast groaned, dazed from the impact. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, Ethan stood up, still shaking. "Did I just win?" The Kryn beast let out a weak snarl, but didn't get back up. The crowd of warriors, who had been laughing at him just moments ago, now stared in shock. Zyra, still standing by her throne, raised an eyebrow. For the first time, there was something new in her expression. Interest. She stepped forward and spoke. "You did not fight it head-on. You used strategy." Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. "Yeah, because if I fought it head-on, I'd be dead." Zyra nodded. "Smart. But in my culture, strength is not only about muscle. A warrior must know how to outthink the enemy." Ethan blinked. "Wait. Does that mean I passed?" Zyra gave him a small smirk. "Yes. You have passed the first test." The crowd exploded into cheers. Warriors slammed their fists to their chests, showing respect. A few even nodded at Ethan with approval. Ethan let out a long breath. "Great," he muttered. "Only took nearly dying to impress my new in-laws." Zyra chuckled, stepping closer to him. "You are full of surprises, human. Let's see if you can survive the next challenge." Ethan groaned. Next challenge. He had a bad feeling about this. Ethan barely had time to catch his breath before Zyra spoke again. "The first trial tested your mind," she said, "but the next trial will test your honor." Ethan groaned. "Can't we take a lunch break first?" Maybe a nap. The alien crowd laughed at his words, but Zira simply smirked. You survive one beast and think you deserve rest. A warrior is always ready. Ethan sighed. Fine. What's the next test? Zira gestured toward the back of the hall, where two Thurzok warriors stepped forward. They carried a large ornate chest made of dark metal. As they placed it on the ground, the lid opened with a loud hiss, revealing its contents. Inside was a gleaming dagger with a curved black blade. Strange alien symbols glowed along the handle. This, Zira said, is the blade of judgment. In Thurzok tradition, when honor is questioned, the accused must prove their worth by taking the blade and choosing their fate. Ethan frowned. Okay, and what exactly am I being accused of? A deep voice boomed from across the hall. You are unworthy of our commander. Ethan turned and saw a massive warrior step forward. He was at least 9 feet tall, covered in heavy armor, and had a long scar running across his face. His golden eyes burned with hatred. I am Lord Cathar, second in command of the Thurzok, the warrior declared, and I challenge your right to stand beside Zira. Ethan gulped. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Cathar sneered. A weak, soft-bodied human has no place in our world. The only reason you are here is because of a foolish contract mistake. Ethan scowled. Hey, I'll have you know. He paused. Okay, yeah, that's exactly why I'm here. But that doesn't mean I can't adapt. The warriors in the crowd murmured among themselves. Cathar growled. Prove it. Zira pointed to the dagger. The trial is simple, she said. You must take the blade and choose your fate. You can challenge Cathar to battle, or you can offer him the blade and admit defeat. Ethan's eyes widened. Oh, great. Another fight. Against a 9-foot warlord. He stared at the dagger, his mind racing. If he fought Cathar, he would be crushed in seconds. But if he surrendered, he would be seen as a coward. And worse, he would lose any chance of proving himself in this world. He took a deep breath. All right, he muttered. Time to be smart again. Slowly, he picked up the blade. Cathar grinned, expecting a fight. But instead of pointing it at his opponent, Ethan turned the blade toward himself and held out the handle to Cathar. The hall fell dead silent. Cathar's eyes narrowed. You surrender. Ethan shook his head. No. But if I truly have no honor, then you should take the blade and strike me down. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Zira's eyes widened slightly. Cathar hesitated. He had expected Ethan to beg for mercy or try to run. But this was something different. Ethan held firm, his hand steady. If you believe I don't deserve to be here, then prove it. Kill me right now. The warriors watched in silence, waiting. For a long moment, Cathar stared into Ethan's eyes. Then, with a deep growl, he stepped back. Imp, you may be weak, but you have courage. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Zira stepped forward, a rare smile on her lips. You have passed the second trial. The crowd roared in approval, slamming their fists to their chests. Ethan grinned. Well, that was easy. Zira chuckled. Do not celebrate yet, human. There is still one more test. Ethan sighed. Of course there is. Ethan barely had time to process his near-death experience before Zira spoke again. You have proven your mind is sharp, she said. You have proven your heart is strong. But the final test is the most important of all. Ethan groaned. Let me guess. Another fight. Zira smirked. No, this is a test of loyalty. Ethan blinked. Loyalty to what? She gestured, and the massive doors at the far end of the hall creaked open. A group of Thurzok warriors entered, carrying something between them. As they stepped into the light, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was a human. A man, beaten and bruised, dressed in the same standard-issue uniform Ethan had worn when he first arrived at the Galactic Trade Services office. His face was swollen, his hands bound in alien restraints. He looked terrified. "James Parker," Zyra announced. "Another human who signed the same contract as you. He has been caught trying to escape." Ethan's stomach twisted. Another human. He wasn't alone in this nightmare. Zyra's golden eyes locked onto Ethan. "Your final trial is simple. Prove your loyalty to the Thurzok by passing judgment on this traitor." The crowd murmured in anticipation. Cathar grinned cruelly. Ethan's throat went dry. "Wait, you want me to judge him?" Zyra nodded. "Yes. He broke the sacred bond. He disrespected our ways. According to tradition, such betrayal is met with death." Ethan felt his heartbeat thunder in his ears. This is a trap. If he refused, the Thurzok might see him as weak. But if he agreed, he would be sending another innocent human to his death. James lifted his battered face. "Please," he whispered. Ethan clenched his fists. He thought back to everything he had learned so far. The Thurzok respected strength, but strength wasn't just about fighting. It was about choosing the right path. He turned to Zyra. "I will pass judgment." She nodded. "Then speak." Ethan took a deep breath. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped forward, grabbed a knife from a warrior's belt, and slashed James's restraints free. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Cathar growled, reaching for his weapon. But Ethan wasn't done. He turned back to Zyra and stood tall. "My judgment is this. James is not a traitor. He is a man who never chose to be here, just like me. If the Thurzok value honor, then you should not punish a man for wanting freedom." The hall fell into silence. Zyra stared at Ethan for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile formed on her lips. "You continue to surprise me, human," she said. "You have passed the final test." Ethan blinked. "Wait, really?" Zyra nodded. "The test was never about killing. It was about seeing if you would stand by what you believe." The crowd erupted into cheers, some warriors even clapping their fists to their chests in approval. Ethan let out a deep sigh of relief. He had won. But something told him this was only the beginning. Ethan still couldn't believe it. He had survived all 3 trials. The warriors of the Thurzok were cheering for him instead of laughing at him. Even Cathar, who had wanted him dead, was watching with a grudging look of respect. But the biggest shock, Zyra was smiling at him. She stepped closer, looking him over as if seeing him for the first time. "You are not like the warriors of my people," she said, "but you are no coward either." Ethan sighed in relief. "So that means I'm free to go, right?" Zyra's smile faded. The crowd fell silent. "No," she said firmly. "You are still my mate." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Oh, come on. I passed the tests. What more do you want from me?" Zyra raised an eyebrow. "Do you think a few trials are enough to undo a sacred bond? Marriage among the Thurzok is for life." Ethan ran a hand down his face. "I should have read the fine print." The warriors laughed, but Zyra stayed serious. She placed a strong hand on his shoulder. "You have earned my respect, Ethan. That is not something I give lightly." Ethan looked up at her. There was something different in her eyes now. Not just amusement or curiosity. Something deeper. For the first time, he realized Zyra wasn't just some terrifying alien warrior. She was a leader, someone who had spent her whole life proving her strength. Maybe in her own way, this marriage was as strange for her as it was for him. Ethan took a deep breath. "All right. What happens now?" Zyra straightened. "Now you choose. You may stay by my side as my mate and a warrior of the Thurzok." Ethan's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean like full-time?" She nodded. "Or if you truly wish to leave, I will grant you your freedom." The crowd gasped. Warriors exchanged shocked looks. Even Cathar's mouth fell open slightly. Ethan blinked. "Wait, you're serious?" Zyra nodded. "I will not force a bond upon a man who does not want it. That is not the Thurzok way." Ethan stared at her, completely stunned. A few hours ago, he thought this woman was a ruthless warlord who would have him executed for sneezing the wrong way. Now she was giving him a choice. He looked at James, the other human, who was still weak but alive. Then at the warriors who had once mocked him but now respected him. And finally, he looked at Sarah. She was terrifying. She was strong, but she had also been fair. And maybe, just maybe, Ethan sighed. You know what? If I go back home, I'll be stuck at a boring desk job. But if I stay, he smirked, at least life won't be dull. Zura's golden eyes gleamed. So you accept? Ethan grinned. Yeah. Let's see where this crazy marriage takes us. The hall erupted into cheers. And just like that, Ethan's life changed forever. Ethan had barely gotten used to the idea of being Zyra's mate when reality hit him hard. Wake up, human. Ethan groaned as Zyra's voice boomed through their chamber. He cracked one eye open and saw her already fully armored, her golden eyes focused. What time is it? He mumbled, still wrapped in the soft alien furs of his sleeping quarters. Zyra smirked. Time to fight. Ethan bolted upright. Wait, what? Zyra tossed a set of armor onto his bed. An enemy clan has challenged our strength. If we do not respond, they will see it as weakness. Ethan stared at her. And this involves me how? Zyra crossed her arms. You are my mate, my warrior. The Thorzok fight together. Ethan gulped. Oh, fantastic. An hour later, Ethan stood on a battlefield. The sky was dark with storm clouds. Hundreds of Thorzok warriors stood in formation, their weapons gleaming. Across the field, another alien clan, larger, bulkier warriors with grayish skin and glowing red eyes, prepared for war. Ethan's hands shook as he held a strange energy blade Zyra had given him. Remind me again, how do I not die? Zyra, standing beside him, chuckled. Stay close to me. Oh yeah, because standing next to the biggest target is such a great idea. Before Zyra could reply, a loud horn blasted through the air. The enemy charge. Ethan's heart pounded as massive warriors rushed toward them, weapons raised. The Thorzok roared in response, surging forward. Ethan panicked. Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap! He ducked just as a huge axe swung at his head. It barely missed. He stumbled backward, nearly dropping his weapon. A deep laugh sounded next to him. You are not a warrior yet, human. Ethan turned and saw Cathar, slicing through enemies like they were nothing. The massive Thorzok warrior grinned at Ethan. Ethan scowled. Yeah, watch this. A bulky gray-skinned warrior charged at him, swinging a club. Ethan yelled and rolled to the side, completely by accident, causing the attacker to trip over him and faceplant into the dirt. Ethan blinked. Ha! That actually worked. Zyra slashed through two enemies and looked at him. You are still alive. Good. Ethan groaned. Barely. Suddenly, he spotted an enemy archer aiming directly at Zyra. Time slowed. Without thinking, Ethan grabbed a dagger from the ground and hurled it. Thunk. The dagger struck the archer's arm, throwing off his aim. The energy arrow missed Zyra by inches. Zyra whirled around to see what happened, her golden eyes locked onto Ethan. For the first time, her expression showed something more than respect. It showed pride. Ethan grinned. Did I pass that test too? Zyra smirked. You are learning, husband. And the battle raged on. The battle raged on, and Ethan had never felt more alive or more terrified. He ducked as another alien warrior swung at him with a heavy axe. Nope, not today. Ethan yelped, rolling to the side. The warrior stumbled forward, and before he could recover, Zyra's blade slashed across his chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Zyra turned to Ethan. You fight like a sand rat. Ethan panted. Hey, as long as I'm not a dead sand rat, I'm good. Zyra smirked. then turned back to the battlefield. The enemy warriors were falling back, their numbers dwindling. The Tharzak let out victorious roars, sensing the battle was nearly won. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. Maybe I'll survive this after all. But then, a deep growl rumbled across the field. Ethan froze as he saw the enemy leader step forward. The alien was twice as big as anyone else, his massive body covered in dark battle armor. His red eyes glowed with rage. He carried a huge, double-bladed weapon that crackled with energy. And worst of all, he was heading straight for Zira. The Tharzak warriors stepped back, recognizing the danger. Even Kaethar clenched his fists. Zira, however, stood tall. "Krolvash," she said, her voice cold. "You have lost. Surrender." Krolvash snarled. "I will never bow to a female." Ethan rolled his eyes. "Oh great, a sexist alien warlord. Just what we needed." Krolvash lifted his massive weapon. "Face me, Zira. Prove you are worthy to lead." Ethan's stomach twisted. He could see it. This guy was stronger, faster, and completely ruthless. Even Zira might not walk away from this fight. Zira, however, smiled. "As you wish." Ethan panicked. "Wait, hold on. Do we really have to do this?" Zira ignored him and lunged at Krolvash. The two warriors clashed, their weapons striking with explosive force. The ground shook beneath them as they exchanged brutal blows. Ethan watched, heart pounding. Zira was fast, her movements sharp and precise. But Krolvash was a brute, every strike forcing her back. Then with a roar, Krolvash swung his weapon in a vicious arc. Zira tried to block, but the impact sent her crashing to the ground. Ethan's eyes widened. "Zira." Krolvash laughed, towering over her. He raised his weapon for the final strike. Ethan didn't think. He just moved. With a desperate shout, he grabbed a fallen spear and hurled it with all his strength. Thunk. The spear struck Krolvash in the leg. He roared in pain, stumbling. It was all the time Zira needed. With a fierce battle cry, she leaped up, her blade flashing. And in one swift motion, she struck him down. The battlefield fell into silence. Then the Tharzak warriors erupted into cheers. Zira turned to Ethan, breathing hard. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You fought well, husband." Ethan grinned. "Yeah, well, I'm starting to get the hang of this." The battlefield was still buzzing with victory. The Tharzak warriors raised their weapons, chanting Zira's name. The enemy forces, leaderless and broken, had already begun to retreat. Ethan stood in the middle of it all, breathing hard. His hand still shook from the fight, but somehow, he was alive. Zira stepped toward him, her golden eyes locked onto his. "You interfered in my duel," she said. Ethan winced. Yeah. But in my defense, I saved your life." Zira stared at him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she let out a laugh. A real, deep, amused laugh. Ethan blinked. "Wait, you're not mad." She smirked. "You are my mate. It is your duty to fight beside me, not behind me." Ethan sighed in relief. "Well, that's good, because I'm really bad at standing still." Kaethar stomped toward them, his arms crossed. "The human has guts. I'll give him that." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Was that a compliment?" "From you." Kaethar grunted. "Do not let it go to your head." The Tharzak warriors continued their victory celebration, but Zira raised a hand, silencing them. She turned to face her people, standing tall and proud. "This battle is over," she declared. "We have won. But there is one last thing to settle." Ethan frowned. "Oh, that doesn't sound good." Zira turned back to him, her expression serious. "You have proven yourself in battle. You have earned the respect of my warriors. But one thing remains, your place among us." Ethan gulped. "Haven't I already done enough?" Zira smirked. "No, husband. Now, you must take your oath." The crowd hushed as Zira unsheathed her blade. She pointed it toward Ethan, her golden eyes piercing into him. "Ethan of Earth, do you swear to stand beside me, not as a prisoner, not as a servant, but as my equal?" Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Her equal. Not a trophy. Not just a husband bound by an accidental contract. A true partner. He glanced at the warriors surrounding them, waiting for his answer. He thought about everything he had been through, the trials, the battles, the chaos. And then he looked at Zira. She was strong, fierce, and terrifying. But she had also given him something no one else had. A choice. Ethan took a deep breath. Then he stepped forward and placed his hand over Zira's. "I swear," he said firmly. The warriors roared in approval. Thar gave a sharp nod. Zira studied him for a moment, then smiled. Not a smirk, not a challenge, but a real, genuine smile. "Then from this day forward," she said, gripping his hand tightly, "you are not just my husband. You are Thurzok." The Thurzok warriors cheered, their voices echoing across the battlefield. Ethan felt the weight of their gazes, their acceptance. Just days ago, he had been nothing more than an outsider, a human who had accidentally signed a marriage contract with an alien warlord. Now, he was one of them. Zira turned to him, golden eyes filled with something new, pride. "You have chosen your path," she said, "and the Thurzok welcome you." Ethan let out a deep breath. "Wow, so that's it, No more trials, no more battles." Kithar chuckled. "Oh, there will be many battles. You are Thurzok now." Ethan groaned. "Great. No retirement plan." Zira smirked. A warrior's life is never dull. The warriors began their victory feast, a massive celebration filled with alien music, food, and drink. Ethan sat beside Zira, still trying to wrap his head around everything. James, the other human who had been captured, approached and clapped a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Dude, I still can't believe you married an alien warlord." Ethan sighed. "Tell me about it." He glanced at Zira, who was watching him with a raised eyebrow. "But, I guess I could have done worse." Zira smirked. "You are lucky, husband." Ethan chuckled. Yeah, I know." As the night continued, Ethan realized something strange. He felt at home. The warriors, once his enemies, were now his allies. The chaos of their world, the battles, the challenges, it all felt right. He had spent his life looking for something exciting, something meaningful. And somehow, in the most ridiculous way possible, he had found it. Zira leaned toward him. "So, husband, tell me, what do you think of your new life?" Ethan grinned. "Honestly, it's completely insane." He paused, then shrugged. "But I think I like it." Zira chuckled. "Good, because this is just the beginning." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Wait, what do you mean just the beginning?" Zira's smile turned mischievous. "I will explain tomorrow." Ethan groaned. "I should have read the fine print on that marriage contract." Zira laughed, and the sound wasn't mocking this time. It was warm. Ethan shook his head, then lifted his drink. "To unexpected adventures." Zira smirked and raised her own cup. "To the Thurzok." The warriors roared in agreement, their voices shaking the sky. And with that, Ethan's new life truly began.